Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
And welcome to another new moon, new month that Yahweh has preserved our lives to see. On this evening, we're going to go over a few things. I mean, we've been facing a lot of decision makings. And I mean, we've been reading out the scriptures, some of us for years upon years now. For some people, it's just getting into the word, it's new. But we've got an understanding that at this point in time, things are getting rougher, times are getting tougher. We can look and see the things that we've read happening before our eyes. The time for playing games is over. It's time for us to get serious about our walk. It's time for us to get serious about the direction we're taking. It's time for us to get serious about Yahweh's work. And the bottom line is this. It's either you are or you're not going to do what thus says Yah. Being in the middle of the road, playing games, those times are over. For those of us who've come into the knowledge and the understanding, we're only doing harm to ourselves. For the people that have yet to come into the understanding, they have a better chance than any of us that have come into this word and decide that we're still playing games. It's going to weigh heavier on us. What's been said over and over? If you love me, feed my sheep. Yahweh said it. Yahshua said it. So as we grow in righteousness, we have to feed the sheep. But we can't think that we're feeding the sheep if we're causing dissension and creating chaos and separation. We definitely have to grab hold of the understanding that we have and have faith that Yahweh will pull us through. We have to. On this evening, tonight's class is called Disobedient Israel. And what we're going to look at is Israel's disobedience in many different ways. I'll try my best not to keep us here long, but then again, it's the Sabbath where we got to go. Maybe I'll do a class and Eli will do a class. We've read where, they read out the books until morning. We've got no place to go, so Shabbat Shalom. All right, we're going to begin in 1 Kings chapter 13 and verse 1. 1 Kings chapter 13 and verse 1. And once again, like I said, tonight's class is called Disobedient Israel.
And behold, there came a man of Elohim out of Yehudah by the word of Yahweh unto Bethel. And Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense.
So this is a man of Yahweh coming from Yehudah. This is not just anyone. This is a man of Yahweh. That means this is a servant. He's on a mission. Let's jump down to verse 7.
And the king said unto the man of Elohim, Come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. And the man of Elohim said unto the king, If thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so was it charged me by the word of Yahweh, saying, Eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest. So he went another way, and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel.
So he understands his instructions to the point that he is able to repeat his instructions to the king. This is the king asking him to come in and break bread with him. The king, the ruler. But he's letting you know that what Yahweh has said to me supersedes what you, the king, the ruler of the land, says. And we've gotten into this thing now where we've heard obey the laws of the land, so go well with you. This is the ruler. This is the king. This is the man over the land. But he's telling them, no, I can't do this thing. Because this is what Yahweh has commanded of me to do. But let's see if he stays the course. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of Elohim had done that day in Bethel. The words which he had spoken unto the king, them they told also to their father. And their father said unto them, What way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of Elohim went, which came from Yehudah. And he said unto his sons, Saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of Elohim, and found him sitting under an oak, and said unto him, Art thou the man of Elohim that camest from Yehudah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, Come home with me, and eat bread. And he said, I may not turn with thee, nor go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me, by the word of Yahweh, Thou shalt eat no bread, nor drink water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest.
So we can see that he has full understanding of what Yahweh commanded him. He totally understands what Yahweh has said to him, what his job, his duties entail. Go ahead.
He said unto him, I am a prophet also, as thou art. And an angel spake unto me by the word of Yahweh, saying, Bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. So he went back with him, and did eat bread in his house, and drank water.
So the king's decree, or what the king asked of him, he turned down. This man comes and presents the same offer. He turns it down. But once the man says, I'm just like you, all of a sudden, Yahweh's commandment goes out the door. But if Yahweh gave you your instructions, don't you think if he changed your instructions, he would come and give you new instructions? Mm-hmm. The thing about it is this: as we read out of the scriptures, as we learn the laws, the prophets, the statutes, and we can see circumstances and situations that servants go through, I don't care if it's Kish ben Israel, Deacon Kish, comes to you and tells you something and it goes against what's written in this book. We all need to learn to stand on what's written in this book. Mm-hmm. If it's Eliel, if it's not with what's written in this book, we need to be able to step back and say, no, that's not the understanding that I have. That is the strength that we now need to be able to have in these days and times. We got to understand, Priest Esaac is sitting there. If what he says goes against what's written in this book, then we have a problem. This man just simply said, I'm a prophet just like you. All of a sudden it was okay to listen to him? We can't keep ourselves divided in what we're doing nowadays. You're either on the course or you're not. We have this thing where all of us have heathen friends, but are we being persuaded by our heathen friends, or are we learning to persuade them onto the course of righteousness? There's many camps out. And as we separate ourselves to jump out to go hang out with this person from this camp, or we run to go watch this video from that camp, we're all getting different spirits from different places. we've got to understand that it comes a point in time where you got to say, this is where I'm at. This is the course I'm walking. We've had people come here. A guy came here and said, Michael Jackson's the Antichrist. It's been given to him to go fight Michael Jackson. You know what? That's what was given to you. That's not what was given to us. He started wanting to break down the name of Michael Jackson. I said, brother, I don't want to go through that. He got upset and wanted to fight in the lobby. Brother, that's what was given to you. That was not given to me. That was not given to this congregation. So we got to understand, as you're jumping around from congregation to congregation, watching video after video, their instructions and their directions might not be the same. So what are you doing to yourself? You're putting yourself on the line to be confused. Scripture says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, not just some, all. Because when it comes to making a decision, you're going to have the thought process of what was taught to you here about a situation. You're going to have the thought process of what was taught to you over there about the same situation. And now you've got sheep in front of you looking for direction, and you cannot guide them because you yourself are not grounded. Go ahead.
1 Kings chapter 13 and verse 19. So he went back with him and did eat bread in his house and drank water. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of Yahweh came unto the prophet that brought him back. And he cried unto the man of Elohim that came from Yehudah, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, for as much as thou hast disobeyed of Yahweh, and hast not kept the commandment which Yahweh thy Elohim commanded thee, but camest back, and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place of which Yahweh did say to thee, Eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers.
Now, how do you, we need to put ourselves in this man's place to hear this person that persuaded you to come back, that persuaded you to go against the word of Yahweh, now telling you that because of your disobedience to Yahweh, you're going to die. Honestly, two of us would be dying. Because I think I'd have jumped across the table and killed him. I mean, if I'm going to die anyway, might as well go ahead and take you out. Because now you realize you tricked me. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, after he had eaten bread, and after he had drunk, that he saddled for him the ass, to wit, for the prophet whom he had brought back. And when he was gone, a lion met him by the way, and slew him, and his carcass was cast in the way, and the ass stood by it. The lion also stood by the carcass. And behold, men passed by and behold, men passed by, and saw the carcass cast in the way, and the lion standing by the carcass. And they came and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. And when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, It is the man of Elohim, who was disobedient unto the word of Yahweh. Therefore Yahweh hath delivered him unto the lion, which hath torn him and slain him, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spake unto him.
See, he wouldn't have been able to tell that story because he wouldn't have been around to tell about my disobedience that you caused on me. Because it would have been the man slayed him and then the lion slayed me. Let's go to Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13, and we're going to start at verse 1. I mean, Yahweh left his body there for an example for others to see. But here we are, we see a man who started out as a servant of Yahweh. He stood boldly twice on what was told to him. But then respect the persons came in, and he faltered. There's a time when you got to figure out, and that time is now. Who are you going to be disobedient to? The powers that be is setting up stuff. And the stuff that they're setting up is to harm all of mankind. The only way for us to get through is obedience unto Yah. But we have to read examples of our people and understand what the wrong decision making of disobedience can cause. The lion should have devoured him and ate him, but it just tore him apart and left him so others could see. Yahweh leaves examples in all things, good, bad, and indifferent. Numbers chapter 13, verse 1.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moshe, by the commandment of Yahweh, sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All those men were heads of the children of Israel.
All right, let's jump down to verse 25. So
And
they're all heads. They're all heads. These are men of understanding, men that run their family. So these should be men that should be able to stand up boldly. You don't become the head of a family and should not be able to stand firmly on decision making. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moshe, and to Aaron, and to all the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the wilderness of Paran, to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them, and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him, and said, We came unto the land where thou sent us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it.
Now, you going out to spy out a land. You got to understand the movements that you're having to deal in order to actually be able to bring out what they brought back. So they weren't fearful with getting substance out to bring back proof of the goodness of the land. And you think that you've already been in. Reconnaissance, as they would call it. But yet, something happens to them along the way. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there.
But you were moving amongst these people. And you brought back fruit from this people. Even though you know they're stronger than you. Even though you know there's giants in the land. But you still went through a reconnaissance and brought back proof. Yahweh allowed you to get in, to get that, and come back out safely. We have seen what Yahweh does and can do. None of us is sitting in this room on our own accord. Every one of us needs to reflect on our own lives and see where we should have been carcass a long time ago. I don't care if it's looking back at your childhood when you're on the playground and you fell off of something and you should be dead. We should all examine our lives to see what we've been brought through. But to come this far, to come into the word, to come into the understanding of Yahweh's righteousness and what's required of his servants, and still give it a half effort, is truly unfair. Go ahead.
Verse 29. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan.
So all these things that they're telling you, that means they went deep into the land. They went deep, deep into the land. They didn't just look in, grab some stuff, and run back out. They were doing some real reconnaissance. They were traveling from city to city. Go ahead.
Numbers chapter 13 and verse 30. And Caleb stilled the people before Moshe and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we.
So we spent all this time in this land, searching it out, making our way through, got back out safely, and don't think that if we now go in number and force that Yahweh is able to give it to us? Go ahead.
And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone through to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof.
But yet we made it out. Go ahead.
And all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight.
Continue.
Chapter 14. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night.
So it took a few men, fearful men, to stir up the whole congregation. Do you understand that a few men can also strengthen a whole congregation? What we do from here on out as servants of Yahweh can either bring people into this word or run people away from this word. Those of us who are truly saying we're servants of Yahweh, we're being watched. You let a day pass where the edicts of man cause you not to do thus says Yahweh, believe me, you will hear about it. At this point, I would like to say thank you to all the brothers and sisters who have stood up and continue to come out to keep the things commanded of us by Yahweh. Each and every one of you, I pray that Yahweh sees it as righteousness for each and every one. And even for those that's on the internet or on the phones that would have the desire to want to be here. We've had brothers make a journey, 2 hours drive, to have to turn them back. But you know what? They made the effort. Why? Because of this so-called social distancing. As hard as it was, we had to stick to that decision. But they made an effort, 2 hour drive. That's one way. But yet we live right around here and come when we feel like. Now is definitely the time for us to be coming to Bible study, new moon, asking the priests, asking the deacons for understanding of what is yet to come. Fearful Israel is going to do nothing but spread fear to the rest of Israel. Man, the Christians were standing more boldly than some of us. You got Christian preachers who was locked up because they refused to follow the edicts of man. They weren't swayed by the number of people saying, oh, he's putting people's lives in jeopardy. He can't put anybody's life in jeopardy that didn't voluntarily bring themselves around him. He didn't force them. Those people made a decision that this is more important to me than the edicts of man. And they're unrighteous. But yet the righteous servants have fallen by the wayside. Don't you think them same unrighteous people are going to one day say, and where were you when this was going down? Don't come talk to me now about some Yahweh. I seen you waver in your faith. But then the problem is when you're wavering, don't pull other people down with you. We can understand if you gracefully just bow out and say, hey, my faith is not as strong as I thought it was. Go ahead.
And all the children of Israel murmured against Moshe and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, would Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt? Or would Elohim we had died in this wilderness? And wherefore hath Yahweh brought us unto this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And they said one to another, let us make a captain, and let us return into Egypt. Then Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land. If Yahweh delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it us, a land which floweth with milk and honey.
And there's a situation again. We're in that same situation. If Yahweh delights in us, he will bring us into the land. We are in that very same predicament. We're not in the land, people. But will Yahweh delight in us to bring us into the land? Who amongst us is going to bring up a false report about the land? Go ahead.
Only rebel not ye against Yahweh, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and Yahweh is with us. Fear them not. But all the congregation bade stone them with stones, and the glory of Yahweh appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, how long will this people provoke me? And how long will it be ere they believe me? For all the signs, which I have showed among them, I will smite them with the pestilence, and disinherit them, and I will make of thee a greater nation, and a mightier than they.
Go ahead and jump to verse 36 for me, please.
36. And the men which Moshe sent to search the land, who returned, and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up a slander upon the land, even those men that did bring up the evil report upon the land died by the plague before Yahweh.
So you see how your fear, spreading fear to the children, can end up costing you your life. Because basically, you have scattered the sheep. Go ahead.
But Yahshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, which were of the men that went to search the land, lived still. And Moshe told these sayings unto all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. And they rose up early in the morning, and gat them up into the top of the mountain, saying, Lo, we be here, and will go up unto the place which Yahweh hath promised, for we have sinned. And Moshe said, Wherefore now do ye transgress the commandments of Yahweh? But it shall not prosper.
So why now do you want to do what you were supposed to do? But Yahweh has already changed the instructions. When he said to go, that's when you should have went. Not when you feel like it, but you've allowed someone else to stir up fear in you. They're dead and gone. Now you ready to go up. Yahweh's not with you. So those are the things we have to examine ourselves about when we get into that fearfulness. Are you dealing with the fear on your own? Are you bringing other people into the same situation of now second guessing the commandments of Yah? He says he's not with you now. Why you want to go up now? And if we're looking at the slide, you know, we've always heard about no black people were that far up in the land. Look at where Egypt is at compared to where the whole of Canaan land compasses. You have to go up, right? Now you understand why he's saying go not up, because it was an upward journey. But see, some things don't make sense till you can actually look at it on a map. They're going upwards into the land, which they say no black people was that far up. Moshe said, why you want to go up now? Those are the things that we have to consider when we get off into our own mess, into our own fearfulness, when we step back from what we understand and know about Yahweh's righteousness. How far back are we? And when we decide to make a move, do we consider the fact that my fearfulness might have caused Yahweh not to no longer be with me, no longer be with my household? Because see, those 12 heads of the tribes of Israel that brought up the false report did not just affect their own households, it affected the whole congregation of Israel. It caused Yahweh to step away from them all. To the point that even Moshe was smart enough to know that Yahweh's not with us. He's still there. Caleb and Joshua is still there. But he said, Yahweh ain't with us. So even the righteous servants was affected by this dealing and this doing. Go ahead.
Verse 42. Go not up, for Yahweh is not among you, that ye be not smitten before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you. and ye shall fall by the sword, because ye are turned away from Yahweh. Therefore Yahweh will not be with you. But they presumed to go up onto the hilltop. Nevertheless, the ark of the covenant of Yahweh and Moshe, and Moshe, departed not out of the camp.
So what made them feel so emboldened to still want to go up? They're still alive. Because they're still alive, they feel that they're still in good standings. Go ahead.
Then the Amalekites came down, and the Canaanites which dwelt in that hill, and smote them, and discomfited them, even unto Hormah.
And that's what happens when you have disobeyed Yahweh's commandments. That's what happens when you have spread fear amongst the children to scatter them from the righteousness of Yahweh, from the commandments of Yahweh. And your enemies, people who shouldn't be able to touch you, have the mastery of you. Yahweh steps back. The best thing to do when you get off in your mess and somebody brings it to you, sit back a while. Get yourself back right before you presumptuously jump back into the affairs of Yahweh. Let's go to Daniel chapter 3. As servants of Yahweh, we need to understand that we have a job to do. And while doing our job, people are watching us, everything we do, to see if we're really about what we say we're about. We know there's many, 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 many different camps. And some of the doctrines that's being put out, we have to boldly stand and fight against. But at this point in time in our lives, we got to understand what's being expected of us. We've got to understand that everybody's watching us who knows what you're about. And 9 out of 10 people who know your past are waiting for you to fall back into that same old person that you used to be. I don't care how many years you've been in the Word. You either go influence some of those people from your past to get on the path because they say, you know what, this brother's not, or this sister's not turning away from this. Then you got those who holding out, just waiting for one little mistake. And they're going to capitalize on that one little mistake and say, yeah, I knew it. But even with that one little mistake, like I said, we have to step back and get ourselves together. Don't let that one little mistake in the low self-esteem that they give you make you just want to jump right back into Yahweh's business. Now examine yourself. At least you go touch something that belongs to Yahweh and cause yourself more problems. Get yourself together. Get back on the path. Don't be discouraged because you slipped. But as things are getting rougher and tougher, we have to be real careful of what we're causing, what we're allowing to cause us to slip. Go ahead, my brother.
Daniel chapter 3 and verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, suckbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up."
Now, if we go right back here, it says, "Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages." So they're in control of everyone. We keep hearing about a new world order. It's nothing new. They were in control of everyone. And here they are trying to put out their new edict. What is going on right here? Nowadays, I call it a game of Simon Says. And this is what we're hearing right now. Simon says, when you hear the cornet, the flute, the sackbut, and the psaltery, fall down and worship the image. I go places and people laugh nowadays. I walk in and I say, Simon says, wear a mask. Simon says, stand on that line right there, 6 foot away from each other. Simon says, when you're in the grocery store, you go down this way down the aisle, not that way. It's a great game of Simon Says. Conditioning the people. But like I said, where is your obedience going to lie? Something like that, ain't no big deal. So you think. Because as you start just falling in line, you don't realize how much programming is going on. The time is coming, and they're already pushing it, where they're trying to get the Sunday law back. So as you fall in line 6 feet behind and you fall in line for social distancing, are you going to fall in line and walk away from the Sabbath too? These things are coming, brothers and sisters. These things are closer to the door than you would believe. We're sitting here watching these silly little distractions about a stimulus check and whether they're going to approve another one. Oh, there's a whole lot of other things being approved behind the scenes. Go ahead.
You know, my brother, Yeshua says those that love mother or father or brother or sister more than me, is not worthy of me. Mm-hmm. And we know when it speaks of, we're supposed to honor our father and our mother, but a lot of people don't consider the fact of, there's certain things that thus saith Yahweh, that there's nothing that my mother or father could say would take me away from that.
Right.
But we know, but not having that understanding, you have a lot of people that, get confused, not understanding, okay, well, yeah, we know that we're supposed to honor mother and father, but there's someone that's greater that allows us to give a greater understanding that, we should not even think or want to go against.
And I want to, while you said, father, mother, brother, sister, I want to throw in there husband, wife.
Yeah, husband, wife.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Daniel chapter 3 and verse 6. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, suckbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up.
Now, it's interesting that this thing just comes out of nowhere, but everybody falls in line. Nobody said, what is this? Why are we doing this? The decree came out, boom, everybody fell in line. Go ahead.
Verse 7.
Verse 8.
Yeah, verse 8, excuse me. Wherefore, at the time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Yehudis. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. O king, has made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, the dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Yehudis whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
Now, if everybody was to fall down, how you know what I didn't do? How you know what I wasn't doing? But it goes to show you that they're always watching Yahweh's servants. Because for them, it would have been a great victory had these brothers fallen down and fell in line. Now what happens? The same way that Israel spread fear amongst the people, that act is emboldening others. We can't have this. We will not have this. So we can spread fear in our actions, or we can strengthen others in our actions. Of righteousness, that is. Because you can strengthen them in wrongdoing too with your actions. You want to spread fear in your actions? Spread fear of Yahweh in your doings. Let people understand that that's who you serve and who you fear. Go ahead.
Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that Elohim that shall deliver you out of my hands?
Now, they've already known who these brothers are. They've been watching them for a long time. Because we can go back to when the king was looking for specific men with specific abilities. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell right in there with Daniel. And from the beginning, they made decisions that they were not going to do certain things. From the beginning, they decided they were not going to eat the meat from the king's table. Don't think that people did not already know this. But we need to see how far your disobedience toward the king is going to go. So we will continue to implement things to see how far your disobedience against the king and the edicts of the land will go. Go ahead.
Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our Elohim who we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
So one way or another, Yahweh's going to deliver us. We either going to die in this furnace, Are we going to die because Yahweh allowed it? One way or another, he's going to deliver us. And if they died in the furnace, understand that they died for righteousness' sake. They, at that point, have sealed their faith of being in the kingdom. We got a decision to make, and we're not following you, O King. Do what you got to do. But if death becomes us, death becomes us. Go ahead.
You know, my brother, in this time, we actually had, or been having, a herald, the news that's been going on about the situations that's going on now.
Right.
But, you know, our life is not being in the situation that their life is being where they have to make a decision.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. You know, but, you know, but we see, you know, where we still can come out and, you know, come to, you know, to the service and do certain things, you know, for Yahweh. But then, you know, we are allowing that fear that the news has put out, you know, that the government has put out, to, you know, to not do what thus saith Yahweh, and you know, we got to consider those things.
Oh yeah.
Verse 19. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was at to be heated. That was it.
No, go ahead. Verse 21. Go all the way to 21.
And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
You know, when I went through this scripture today, for the first time, it dawned on me. The word hats is in here. We keep talking to people about males having a head covering. And we keep going through all this different stuff of explaining what a bonnet is. It plainly says right there they had on hats. There was a head covering. What is it that brothers don't understand? What is it that people don't understand? We've got to understand what a servant of Yahweh looks like, how a servant of Yahweh dress, how a servant of Yahweh conducts himself, how a servant of Yahweh knows how to be disobedient, to whom to be disobedient. At the end of the day, it said Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury. Brother Eli just said, you know, our lives are not at risk like theirs. Not to that mask decree yet, but our lives are at risk every day. And we can see the fury that comes over the so-called rulers of the land, the people that they have in place, when they pull a brother or sister over who will not comply with them, you see the fury. Nothing has changed. That fury comes out in one of us ending up dead. That fury is still there. How dare you go against our laws? How dare you go against us? The people that he sent to bound them were so strict upon their instructions that they didn't realize their own lives were in jeopardy. And that's what we get when we see the authorities on the streets. They're given these decrees of how to deal with us, but the fear is there for their own lives that they'd rather take ours first. Let's go to Daniel chapter 6. I'm going to read verses 1 through 10.
It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm.
So that's already creating a problem. This is an outsider, but he's preferred before us. You want to put him in a position before us, your own people? Man, there's a problem. Go ahead.
Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion, no fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him.
Now this is chapter 6. We just came out of chapter 3. Do you see that they will not stop trying to find some type of snare? Go ahead.
Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his Elohim. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king, and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, and the princes, the counselors, and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute, and to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree, and sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed, and gave thanks before Elohim, as he did aforetime.
So in other words, he's not letting this decree change what he is, normal circumstances, his normal movements, his normal job when it comes to his Elohim. They said when he found out it was signed, he didn't give it a little while and played safe. Nah, I'm going right back to what I'm doing. I don't care. Are we going to let the decrees stop us from what is commanded of us? This is just the warm-up. Like I said, this is just the game of Simon Says, just to see how far they can go. And the more people fall in line, the more emboldened they're going to become. And to be honest with you, hey man, there's some Gentiles out there that stand in their ground. They're not playing these games. People talking about a race war coming? No. It's not going to be a race war. These Gentiles are not playing this game. Our sovereign citizens are not going to have it. While we stand idly by and sway, oh, there's some heathens that are making some power play and are going to stand up for what they believe. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 6 and verse 11.
Actually, let's go to 1 Maccabees
Okay.
chapter 1. We can talk all we want to, but there's some people showing forth some real action. But see, the thing about it, like Brother Eli was talking about the herald nowadays, this media is not showing us everything. But see, that's where us as servants, as brothers and sisters, have to help to keep each other informed. I'm not going to be able to keep up with everything that's going on. Mother Leah's not going to be able to keep up with everything that's going on. Priest Esaac is not going to be able to do it. Brother Ruel, Harel, we all have things that we come across, and it's all our duties to share with the saints. I'm talking about real pertinent information, not the foolishness that a lot of people like to send around. There's immunization laws being put in place. We're not going to be able to catch them all. One person's not going to be able to research it all unless we just dedicate that one person. So if you dedicate that one person to that, then the other things going on over here outside of that, that one person is missing. So who's going to pick up the slack and catch this other stuff? And if I catch something and keep it to myself, what benefit is it to the rest of us? Because as we're getting these things, now we need to understand that we now need to start putting together a plan to stand firmly on our beliefs if these things goes against what Yahweh has commanded us. These immunizations are filled with unclean things that we do not need in our bodies. But one man having information does not benefit the whole house of Israel, both natural and spiritual. We can search the web and pass foolishness around to each other. But where is the stuff that's going to sustain us in the long run of decision making? John F. Kennedy Jr. has been fighting these immunization laws for the longest. It's finally came out law. They can't force us, but these people do not care. Because if enough people don't stand up and know the law, that there's a law passed that says you cannot do this, they have already said it. We will send cops to your homes and forcibly immunize you. You think that's going to help me in my house by myself or my family? But it helps us all if we've got a congregation, a community, near and far, standing on the same beliefs. And even at some points, what the scripture says, make friends with the unrighteous mammon. Hey man, it's time to understand what our good old boy, sovereign citizens, are about. Because if they're saying we're not taking immunizations, hey, it's time to make friends with the unrighteous mammon. We're not taking it either. We with you. So for all the brothers out there who talking about the Gentiles can't get into the kingdom, you go ahead and fight that fight on your own without me. Righteous cause. Pick your enemies. Pick your friends. Understand what you're standing up for. Go ahead.
Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 30. We start from 30.
Yeah. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 30.
And spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the
No,
city.
go ahead and start at verse 29.
29.
Yep, sorry about that.
And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Yehuda, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceably words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
So, what do they have to disagree about? They're all heathens. So, of course, all the heathens are going to disagree. We're heathens. But we got to understand who we are, what we're supposed to be about. And know that when the heathen all disagree, that means they're coming against us. Go ahead.
Verse 43. Yes, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath.
So there you go. A lot of your brothers and sisters went off and consented. That's why we keep hearing about a remnant. It's always going to be a remnant. Go ahead.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Yehuda, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. In the self same manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Yehuda to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to witness every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land.
So in verse 52, then many of the people were gathered unto them to witness, to know everyone that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land. Well, it's just like I said back in the book of Daniel. They're watching. They're watching to see what the true servants of Yahweh are going to do. Because if you've got one servant that stands boldly on the commandments of Yahweh, it's going to prick the hearts of some other people to be emboldened to stand up as well. All it takes is one. One. Jump to verse 65.
There's no 65 in chapter 2.
Yes.
And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Okay. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Yehuda's Maccabeus,
my brother, let's go ahead and back up at chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Okay.
And just continue from verse 53.
53, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor.
So they were driving the people, those who really wanted to follow the laws, into secret places, wherever they could flee for safety. You know, reading this and not having a true understanding of being driven to a place of safety is just a story. This resonated with me on New Year's night. On New Year's night, when a few of us stood here in this building, practically in darkness, just to observe the new year. We had to tone down what we normally would do, just not to bring any attention to the fact that we were still gathering and doing what thus says Yahweh. Let that be an example. Let that be the beginning of our understanding of what could be from here on out. We're still not open back up 100%. You're still passing stores with people lined up outside to get inside because they're only letting a few people in. But Priest Esaac used to say, there's going to come a time when we are not going to have this convenience. Like I said earlier, we had brothers take a 2-hour trip to be turned back around to go back home. That's 4 hours. They were not the only ones. There are other people that showed up at the door. A brother showed up tonight that had to be turned around. Because what? They're still saying social distancing. Yahweh be praised for all of you who are able to listen on the internet or listen by way of the phone lines. But get all that you can now, because the time is coming when even those things will be shut down. YouTube is starting to monitor what they want as acceptable for the hearing of the people. Go ahead.
Verse 54. Now the 50th day of the
15th.
month, Caslu, the 15th, now the 15th day, now the 15th day of the month, Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Yehuda on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And wheresoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandments was that they should put him to death.
So the book of the law is being burnt. If you're found with the book of the law and you consent, you could be put to death. They're pulling these videos that they deem unacceptable, that doesn't go along with their thought process, off of YouTube. You mentioned the wrong word in your teachings, your videos will be pulled. That's an example of pulling the laws away from the people. Next thing, they'll put this all back right into play and start burning the Bibles again. But that won't happen. You want to know why that won't happen? It won't be because Israel will stand up and protest against it. It will be because of the heathen Christians that'll stand up against it. Go ahead.
Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Elohim. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
Now they put to death women who had caused their children to be circumcised. Now let's put this in modern day time. They killed certain women that caused their children not to be immunized. This is what Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation is pushing for. We have sat at the table and we've discussed the fact of where are we going to flee, what we're going to do. And if we realistically look at it, there's nowhere for us to go. I don't care where you're trying to run. People talking about, oh, go back to the continent. Man, they were the first ones to sign the OK. Go and research how many of these rulers in the African continent have already signed their people up for immunization. That's where you want to run to? The guinea pig heaven? Those are the first ones they're going to test it out on. There's no escaping. The book already told us. You're going to run to the rock and the rock going to be looking for rescue. Go ahead.
You know, you mentioned something the other day, my brother, and you know, about New World Order, and what you said about, you know, people trying to run here and there in different places. But yeah, if it's a New World Order, it's the world that's in one order.
Yes, sir. You see, that's the thing, is that we think we're going to be individuals.
Yeah.
You know, we've sat down at the table discussing having land, this, that. And like I've explained to my brothers, I don't care what you have. When they implement this new way of payment and you do not have it, you're going to lose whatever you have. Your house can be paid off for. If you don't have the mark of the beast, the chip, and you cannot pay and make your property taxes, you're going to lose it. If you do not have that chip, that mark of the beast, and you can't pay your ad valorem, for those who are not driving, that is what you've got to pay to keep your car on the road. You're going to lose those privileges. Let's not fool ourselves. The only protection we have, if we're going to walk in righteousness, is Yahweh our Elohim. I don't care what great plan you have. If you don't take that mark, we're losing everything we have. Okay? So get used to the tent and get used to the MREs. Figure out what plants and what leaves you can and cannot eat. That's what it's coming down to. They're pushing this immunization, and they said they want a chip to know all who have it. If you're not functioning inside of their society, you're going to be put outside of their society. And if you own property, that's inside of their society. Because paying property tax is part of their system. Go ahead.
1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 61. And they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit, many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died.
So are we willing to stand up for that? Are we understanding what our people have been through to stand up for righteousness' sake? Are we getting it through our heads that these times are coming again? We don't have to worry about the unclean meat per se. Because if you take the vaccinations, you have been made unclean. So we're thinking about the physical meat. Yeah, I can see the pork, so I can deny eating the pork. But can you see what's in that vial? Do you understand what's being pumped into your system? And it's not just one unclean thing. You're going to die. Because what's in the vial eventually is going to kill you anyway. But where and how and to whom do you become disobedient? Let's go to Romans chapter 13.
Start from verse 1.
Yes, sir. Romans chapter 13, starting at verse 1.
Let every soul be subject unto higher powers, for there is no power but of Elohim. The powers that be are ordained of Elohim. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of Elohim. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation.
Now, when we look at this, this is the thing that everybody likes to go to say, obey the laws of the land so it'll go well with you. This is where they jump around and get all that. We got to understand, when the laws of the land go against what Yahweh has decreed, it's not going to go well with you anyway. If you have understanding of what thus says Yahweh and you're a servant, and you decide to go with the laws of the land that goes against his laws, it's not going to go well with you. So we've got to understand what laws trample on Yahweh's laws. Daniel understood that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understood that. In the times of the Maccabees, a few people understood that. And I'm going to tell you, I believe all Israel understood that, but people make decisions. Decisions were made on who were going to stand or who would stand for righteousness and who would not. And Yahweh has always told us, I will put these people around you to prove you, to see if you will follow me or not. So that means if you're not following him, you're following the nations. Verse 1 said, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there's no power but of Elohim. The powers that be are ordained of Elohim. Yahweh put people up in positions. But now you have to understand whether you follow that power, depending on what that power that has been ordained sets forth and says. Everyone that's been put in power, these nations have a job to do. So yes, Yahweh set them up and allowed them to be set up. But we've got to understand and be able to decipher between righteousness and unrighteousness. Because yes, they are ordained by Yahweh allowing them to be in that position. It says verse 2, whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of Elohim. So a man will tell you, so okay, you're going against the laws of the land, so you're going against Yahweh. But the ultimate power is Yahweh. I'm afraid of that power more so than this power over here. So yes, I'm going to resist your power because he's the ultimate power. Go ahead.
For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good.
And if the rulers are doing good works, rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. That's a righteous ruler. Understand righteousness versus unrighteousness. It's breaking it all down, but people tend to give us this one, obey the laws of the land so it'll go well with you. Is the person in rulership a righteous ruler? If he's a righteous ruler, then his laws should align with what thus says Yahweh. Go ahead.
Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. Verse 4. For he is the minister of Elohim to thee for good.
For good, not for evil. Understand the difference. Go ahead.
But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake.
Now, back to verse 4, it says, for he bears not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that does evil. That's still what's being executed on us, people. We're still under punishment. So as much as we don't like it, he's executing judgment on us. They've taken it too far, but he's doing his job. They're doing what they were set forth to do. But how far will they take it? And how much of us will fall in line and follow the unrighteousness? Go ahead.
For this cause pay ye tribute also, For they are Elohim's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor.
But do we know who we should fear? And do we honor the person we're supposed to honor? Go ahead.
Owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law.
And that true love comes in feeding Yahweh's sheep. With righteousness. Go ahead.
For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet, and if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Now, the beginning, we got the understanding of what they keep saying, right? Obey the laws of the land so it'll go well with you. And then we come down to verse 9, and it goes right back to what laws? Whose laws are those? So once again, if the laws of the land go against what Yahweh has put forth, there's a problem. They went through all of this and telling you about the powers that be and the people that's in power to come right back to Yahweh's laws. Go ahead.
Romans chapter 13 and verse 10. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law.
Yahweh's law. Go ahead.
And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep.
Awake, Israel. Now it is time. We see these things coming up on us. Go ahead.
For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. Verse 12. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light.
Don't just put it on, let it shine. Go ahead.
Let us walk honestly, as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and in envying. But put ye on the Adonai Yahshua the Mashiach, and make not provision for the flesh, to fulfill the lusts thereof.
Now, in this day and time, most people can't even get to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Why? Because you can't go anywhere. You got to stay home. So at this point, look at it as a forceful atonement. Forcefully having to do without those pleasures that you're used to. Whether it be the club, any type of club, the shopping sprees, going to see Keisha. We are in training, people. Take these things and learn from them. We're not always going to be together. So these little jewels that we're getting, let's learn to stand boldly on these things and help one another and bringing home the lost sheep as well. Let's go to Exodus chapter 7. Exodus chapter 7, and we're going to read verse 8 through 12.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moshe and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as Yahweh had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as Yahweh had said.
That's it. Now, we see here that whatever Aaron and Moshe was able to do, Pharaoh's magicians, up to a point, was able to duplicate the same things. So we got to understand that even in this time of plagues, that Yahweh will allow man to bring plagues upon us. We keep hearing the C virus was created, AIDS was created, Ebola was created. Why should that be anything new? Understand, in Egypt, where a lot of people like to give credit to as being the place where all knowledge began, from that point on, they were able to duplicate some of the plagues that came upon the people. So let's not think it's strange that man can come up with plagues and bring things upon us. It's been going on for a very, very long time. Let's not fool ourselves. But just like then, Yahweh allowed it to happen. But there were some things they just could not duplicate. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 15, and this is going to be the last thing for tonight. 1 Samuel chapter 15. And we're going to read verses 22 and 23.
And Samuel said, Hath Yahweh has great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of Yahweh. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams.
That is the things that we need to get an understanding of. Those are the things that we need to understand. That's basically what I've been trying to say all night. We got to understand where, to whom, when to be disobedient or obedient. We've gone through many different scenarios of disobedience against Yahweh and disobedience against the rulers that be. If whatever is being put before you, a decree, goes against what thus says Yahweh, who do you become disobedient to? I mean, years ago we heard a man tell us that if it comes down between Yahweh and the man, you listen to the man. If that man is going against what Yahweh says, please step out of the way. Why die with the man? We saw earlier where man put forth a decree that was not of Yahweh, and the man who followed, he died first. A horrible death. To the point that the other one could go and tell, oh yeah, that was the man that was disobedient to Yahweh. Go ahead.
For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as lawlessness and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of Yahweh, he hath also rejected thee from being king.
That was Saul being rejected as being king. We have to make a decision so we're not rejected as being servants. So we're not rejected as being children. So we're not rejected as being heirs to the inheriting of a land that our forefathers' disobedience caused us to be put out of. The time is at hand, the night is spent, it's at our doors. We cannot continue to play the games that we have played. We cannot waver in our faith. If nothing else, we have to stand boldly like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, Daniel, and know that as long as I stand and have faith in Yahweh, I will make it. If this virus that's being plagued out is what takes you out, the best thing you want to know is that you're in good standings to be in the first resurrection. Don't be afraid of the virus taking you out. Be afraid of not making it in the first resurrection. Once again, my brothers and my sisters, please continue your walk in righteousness of what thus says Yahweh. Once again, I say, I hope for all of you that have been putting forth the effort to continue in your walk to observe Yahweh's Sabbaths, His new moons, His holy days. I pray that Yahweh sees it as righteousness and adds a blessing to us all. That's all I have for tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, bro.